Hi everyone, welcome to the AEWG Accelerated Education workshop on improving the quality of accelerated education programming. We are really delighted to have you with us today. And just to begin by saying that this webinar will be conducted in English and French with closed captioning available in English. If you are joining us, so in order to hear in your language of choice, on the bottom of the Zoom window on the right hand side, you have an option of clicking on the language of interpretation that you prefer. If you'd like to listen in English, please select the English channel. And if you would like to listen in French, please select the French channel. And if you have any problems accessing this, please just write in the chat. Okay, so today we will be joined by a host of panelists. So myself, first of all, my name is Jessica Oddy. I work with the Accelerated Education Working Group, and I will be the moderator today. We will also be joined by Martha Hewison, who is the UNHCR Education Advisor and Accelerated Education Working Group Chair. From DRC, our panelists include Joseph Mange. He is a Senior Education Advisor for Save the Children, and he'll be talking to us today about the AE work that he oversees. We will also be joined by Clemence Sebusanza, Education Coordinator for the Norwegian Refugee Council, also based in DRC. And from Nigeria, we have the pleasure of Dr. John Ede Onemisi, who is the Director and Head of Department for the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education. To support us with today's webinar, we have two very distinguished translators. The first being Nicola Helbeck, who is the ECHO education expert for East and Horn of Africa, and also an Accelerated Education Working Group member. And last but by no means least, we are joined by Antoine Miochet, who is a senior education expert for UNESCO and an Accelerated Education Working Group member, also supporting the translation. So I'm hoping that the translation, everything is working well. We're going to begin with our first session, our first panelist, Martha Hewison. So due to some connectivity issues, Martha is unable to join at the moment. So I will begin by sharing a little bit of information about our Accelerated Education Working Group and Programme, and hopefully she'll be able to jump in when she has connectivity. And so just to begin, to give you a brief overview, the Accelerated Education Working Group has 5 areas of focus for 2021. The first being accelerated education programs included by more governments in national education plans and policies. In the medium term, the accelerated education work envisions that more governments recognise accelerated education as a cost-effective, inclusive and equitable response for overage, out-of-school children and youth. Our second area of focus for 2021 includes strengthening our evidence base. So we wish to strengthen the evidence base for AEPs to better inform programme design and implementation for AE providers and supporters, and to better serve the needs of overage learners, as well as focusing on integrating and sustaining non-formal education in education sector plans and policies. Our third area of focus, we aim we strive for the quality of accelerated education programs to be improved. And to do this, we focus on ensuring the effective dissemination and utilization of our tools and guidance, which we'll talk about more today on this webinar, among donors, national governments, key stakeholders, and implementing partners. Our fourth aim is to ensure that AEPs are better resourced by all key stakeholders for scale and quality. And to do this, we have been targeting key stakeholders to promote and advocate for the inclusion of accelerated education within donor approaches and programmatic responses, and by fostering recognition of accelerated education as an important strategy for connecting humanitarian, early recovery and development programming. And finally, in 2020, in response to COVID-19 pandemic, the Accelerated Education Working Group added the COVID-19 response as an additional area of focus. Over the course of last year, we developed technical notes to support ministries and key stakeholders in deploying accelerated education as an effective response to the needs of learners who have missed out on education. And so that was just to give you a brief overview of the aims and objectives of the Accelerated Education Programme. We could move on to the next slide, please. And then, thank you. So as I mentioned, a big part of the Accelerated Education Working Group's work is around improving quality and scale. And one of the pieces of work we have focused on is a training, a 5-day training to build participants' knowledge and skills in the fundamentals of accelerated education programming. All of our materials are available in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. And during the training, participants will reflect on accelerated education in their country context, apply knowledge and skills to improve program design and to implement, manage, and evaluate accelerated education programs, and work towards a harmonized approach to accelerated education with other national stakeholders through alignment with the 10 principles for effective practice and additional tools and guidance. We can move on to the next slide, please. So who is our training for? Well, our training is intended for anyone involved in accelerated education, from Ministry of Education staff working on formal education policy and programs within a ministry, to implementing partners, designing and implementing accelerated education programs, and technical level staff. We can move on to the next slide, please. We've also developed and published, again, available in multiple languages, our Accelerated Education 10 Principles for Effective Practice. This includes guidance on alignment with policy, program management, and how to support teacher and learners. We move on to the next slide, please. Within the Accelerated Education workshop, we share a wide range of materials, and we utilize the Accelerated Education Working Group tools and guidance, as well as evidence about accelerated education from AEWG case studies and the experience of accelerated education policy and implementation in several countries. Our AE workshop materials include an overall facilitator guide, which is an overall introduction to the workshop, and then 5 facilitation guides, 1 for each day, which is accompanied by a set of PowerPoint slides for each day. If you move on to the next slide, please. And also to highlight that the slides are editable, so you can add titles and any logos particular to your training. So they can be contextualized for your specific workshop. If we move on to the next slide. And during the workshop, we've designed it to be as interactive as possible. We use a variety of instructional approaches, including presentation, whole group, and small group discussion, tool demonstration and use, role play, and crafting. This pedagogical approach was purposely used to demonstrate student-centered teaching and learning in line with the pedagogy that should be used in accelerated education programs. If we move on to the next slide. The overall facilitation guides is divided into days, as I mentioned, and to make it as easy as possible, we have 5 chapters which are color-coded, corresponding to the 5 days. As mentioned, the guide for each day gives you an overview, learning objectives, a quick glance at the day's agenda, required materials, preparation notes, and detailed steps to take to prepare for the workshop. We've also included annexes on arranging panelists, materials you'll need, registration templates, agendas, pre-course and post-course evaluations. We could move on to the next slide. And again, the structure is very clearly laid out. So each day has a facilitation guide and an accompanying PowerPoint. Within the facilitation guide, there is an overview, learning objectives, and a mix of presentations and activities. And if we could just move on to the next slide. For the sessions, we provide examples, which are detailed steps on what to do and say during each part of the day. And as mentioned, each day is a mixture of presentations and activities. You'll see images within the guidebooks and the handbooks which the participants will be using. We've also included timing guidelines for presentations and activities. And these guidelines correspond to the timing structure presented in the day's agenda. We can move on to the next slide. We also thought it was really important to ensure that there was a check-in at the end of each day. And so at the end of each day, participants meet in teams to prepare a final presentation that they will give on the afternoon of day 5. The teams are made up of participants from the same country to ensure cohesion and harmonization. And the teams work together for 30 minutes at the end of each day to prepare for the final session. During this time, they complete parts of the Accelerated Education program checklist that corresponds with the principles that they've discussed that day. And we also ensure that on day 5, teams have additional time to finalize their presentations. And so if we can move on to the next slide. And so the discussions, the panelists who are going to present today were involved in our first Accelerated Education workshop, which was held at the end of 2018 in Kampala, Uganda. This was a bilingual workshop for country teams from 10 countries in East and Horn and West Africa. The country teams consisted of Ministry of Education officials, USAID staff and implementing partners, and UN agency staff. If we just move on to the next slide. As mentioned, each country team developed an action plan throughout the 5 days. And an action was developed each day based on the learnings around the principles covered. And here we have an example of an action plan from around Principle 2, Curriculum and Pedagogy, and specifically Action Point 2D on harmonization. If we move to the next one. Again, here we have another action point from the country team, the Somalia country team, around the teachers, Principle 5, and teachers participate in continuous professional development. Onto the next slide. And so finally from me, all of these materials and more information about the Accelerated Education Workshop can be found on the INEE website on the link shown, and we'll make sure to put that in the chat as well. We're now going to hear from 2 countries who attended the workshop, so from DRC and Nigeria, and hear about their progress in accelerated education after attending the workshop. And so I hand over to Joseph Mange.
Bonjour, je suis Joseph Mange Maoula. Je suis conseiller, j'ai été présenté. Merci Jess, je suis conseiller d'éducation à Save the Children en République démocratique du Congo. Je vais devoir présenter comment Save the Children et ses partenaires ont implémenté les 10 principes d'éducation accélérée en République démocratique du Congo après l'atelier de Kampala. Le prochain slide, s'il vous plaît. Je voudrais commencer par les informations clés sur les projets à travers lesquels nous sommes en train de mettre en œuvre l'éducation accélérée. Les projets pour lesquels nous sommes en train de mettre en œuvre le programme d'éducation accélérée s'appelle JEC, donc c'est réalise, réussite via l'apprentissage et l'insertion dans le système éducatif. Le projet a commencé en 2017, donc il est en train de se terminer, donc il s'est terminé depuis hier, donc le 30 juin 2021. Nous avons travaillé dans 16 centres de rattrapage scolaire, donc actuellement qu'on est en train d'appeler sur le terrain les centres d'éducation accélérée. Nos partenaires avec lesquels nous avons travaillé sont les ministères des Affaires sociales, qui est la tutelle de l'éducation non formelle, donc la Direction générale d'éducation non formelle, les ONG FECOND en Ituri et Alpeco au Tanganyika. Et le projet travaille dans 6 provinces, ou a travaillé dans 6 provinces, l'Ituri, le Tanganyika, le Kasaï oriental, la Lualaba, le Haut-Katanga et la Lomami. Donc, toutes ces provinces, ce sont des provinces affectées donc, par les crises. Le prochain slide. Comme on l'a dit, comment nous, après l'atelier de Kampala, nous, Projet Réalise, nous avons implémenté les politiques et les pratiques de l'éducation accélérée comme nous avons appris à Kampala. Tout de suite après l'atelier de Kampala, nous avons senti au niveau pays, tout de suite rentré, nous avons senti au niveau pays la nécessité de créer un groupe de travail que nous avons appelé groupe de travail national sur l'éducation accélérée. Ce groupe est dirigé par la Direction nationale d'éducation non formelle, Save the Children et tous les partenaires, les ONG qui ont participé à Kampala. La deuxième action que nous avons prise, c'est de cascader les formations. Nous avons cascadé la formation sur les politiques et les pratiques telles que nous l'avons reçues à Kampala dans la majorité des centres, dans les 16 centres que nous appuyons, y compris au niveau national. La troisième activité, au terme de chaque formation, chaque centre s'est auto-évalué en alignement aux 10 principes d'éducation accélérée tels que nous les avons pris. À la fin de chaque formation, chaque centre a développé son plan d'action basé sur quelques priorités clés sur lesquelles les scores étaient très, très faibles. Je voulais, à travers les slides qui vont venir, le prochain, je voudrais vous montrer comment ça a marché par les auto-évaluations et comment développer les plans d'action. Slide prochain. Le slide que vous voyez, c'est la constatation basée sur la checklist de l'ensemble des évaluations compilées dans un document unique au niveau national. Il y a 4 résultats clés que je peux partager avec vous. On peut revenir, oui. Le premier, c'est que la première constatation est qu'on a vu que les résultats des évaluations des différents centres étaient proches, similaires, sur les 10 principes. Ceci prouve que l'outil d'évaluation, donc la checklist, était très bien élaboré et est très efficace. La deuxième constatation, en regardant la checklist, on a vu les scores très faibles, faibles scores pour l'ensemble des centres, c'est-à-dire un total de 34% de scores. Ça signifie quoi? Ça signifie que la qualité, l'alignement de ces centres, donc ça veut dire qu'il n'y avait pas de qualité avant que nous intervenions. Le troisième, il y a principalement les scores très faibles pour les principes 5, 8 et 10. Nous allons le voir peut-être dans les slides qui vont venir. Et le quatrième, c'est une constatation très importante. Même si sur les autres principes, les scores sont faibles, c'est-à-dire il y a même à partir du principe 1 jusqu'au principe 10, il y a d'autres principes où on a un score 50, 60, 30 quelques. Ça signifie que de manière globale, les besoins sont énormes et aligner les programmes donc aux politiques, aux 10 principes sur les politiques et les pratiques, il faut choisir des priorités parce que c'est vraiment beaucoup de travail à faire. Les prochains slides. Le slide ici, c'est pour vous montrer l'efficacité du document de la checklist. Au pied de ce document, j'espère qu'on le montre, il y a des onglets. Il y a un onglet où vous devez remplir les informations pour chaque score que vous alignez par rapport aux différentes actions ou ce que nous appelions, nous, les indicateurs. Par exemple, le principe 1 dit l'éducation accélérée, le programme d'éducation accélérée est flexible et pour les apprenants les plus âgés. Là, il y a 4 indicateurs ou les actions que nous pouvons choisir. En remplissant l'onglet en bas, qu'on appelle remplir les informations, les scores sont générés automatiquement. Vous pouvez constater à droite, là où on a écrit les principes, les scores des principes, les points obtenus et l'automatisation de score. Et pour les premiers principes, dans tous les centres compilés, on a vu que nous étions à 38%. Cela prouve que pour ces principes-là, il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire. Mais comme je l'ai dit tantôt, on a choisi, tous les centres ont choisi 3 principes sur lesquels ils veulent travailler. Les principes 5, 8 et 10. Ils ont choisi les 5, 8 et 10 parce que les scores étaient trop faibles. Ils ont constaté qu'ils veulent bien concentrer les efforts sur ces 3 principes. On va avancer les suivants. Le slide suivant. Merci. Alors, j'aimerais aller de l'avant. Nous avons développé, chaque centre a développé son plan d'action. Au niveau pays, on est en train de finaliser. On a compilé ce plan d'action. On a eu un plan d'action national qu'on va soumettre au ministère des Affaires sociales et de l'enseignement primaire, secondaire et technique. Le slide prochain. Quelles sont les leçons que nous avons apprises? La première leçon, elle concerne le plan d'action. Tous les 16 centres, dans leur plan d'action, la partie implique quels sont les intervenants impliqués. On voit, la première leçon, c'est que il y a la nécessité d'une coordination entre et la définition des rôles entre plusieurs ministères à la fois. Le ministère de l'EPST, le ministère des Affaires sociales, etc., qui ont un rôle à jouer. Et ça devient un grand défi. La deuxième leçon, c'est que les différents plans reposent sur la nécessité de réformes profondes à court terme. Par exemple, tous, ils soulignent la nécessité de la formation, du recrutement et de la formation des enseignants pour les centres d'éducation accélérée. Mais la formation, le recrutement et la formation des enseignants nécessitent des budgets. Il faut des budgets. Mais aussi, il faut un ministère qui soit redevable, c'est-à-dire qui doivent rendre compte. Et c'est là que, comme leçon apprise, la nécessité de mettre sous tutelle tous les centres d'éducation accélérée à l'enseignement primaire, secondaire et technique. Sinon, on ne pourrait jamais y arriver. L'autre leçon apprise, c'est qu'il y a absence de consensus sur les différents intervenants, ou qui est parfois difficile pour actionner un plan. Voilà, une action du plan, pour l'actionner, il faut plusieurs ministères. Alors, le consensus devient compliqué parce que il y a beaucoup de considérations politiques. Le prochain et le dernier. Le prochain slide, s'il vous plaît. Je vous remercie. C'était là.
We will now welcome Clémence, who will share NRC's experience of contextualizing the AE program.
Après l'expérience de Joseph sur l'éducation accélérée par rapport à l'atelier de l'Ouganda, nous passons au contexte de la RDC, à ce qui est de l'éducation accélérée. Comment l'éducation accélérée au niveau de la RDC est à la charge de deux ministères, l'éducation, le ministère de l'Éducation et le ministère des Affaires sociales. Chaque ministère a des responsabilités. Le ministère de l'enseignement primaire, secondaire et professionnel se charge plus de la partie technique, pendant que le ministère des Affaires sociales de la partie plus administrative. Le niveau 1, le niveau 2 et le niveau 3 couvrent l'école primaire en RDC. On note une importante collaboration entre le ministère des Affaires sociales et le ministère de l'enseignement primaire, secondaire et professionnel quand les enfants arrivent au niveau 3. Les enfants du niveau 3 veulent achever les cycles primaires et les ministères de l'enseignement primaire, secondaire et professionnel se chargent de l'accompagnement de ces enfants-là. C'est une phase où les enfants de l'éducation non formelle doivent quitter et aller vers l'éducation formelle. Ils sont soumis à un test national de fin de cycle primaire qui est sanctionné par un certificat d'études primaires qui a le même valeur que la même valeur que pour les enfants qui étudient dans les classes formelles. Cependant, nous connaissons beaucoup de problèmes par rapport au fonctionnement de l'éducation accélérée. Mon prédécesseur Joseph l'a mentionné. Un programme qui a la responsabilité de plusieurs ministères, dont les affaires sociales, aussi le ministère de l'Éducation. C'est tout un problème pour la gestion de ces programmes. Officiellement, c'est le ministère des Affaires sociales qui a l'élude de l'éducation accélérée en RDC. Pendant que les ministères, ces mêmes ministères n'ont pas vraiment une bonne, entre guillemets, une organisation ou une expertise en matière d'éducation des enfants. L'éducation non formelle au sein de la RDC est considérée pour les enfants les plus vulnérables. Ainsi, les parents ne considèrent pas cette partie d'éducation accélérée. Par conséquent, l'éducation accélérée n'a pas de centre officiellement géré par le gouvernement. Ce sont des organisations internationales ou des opérateurs économiques qui créent des centres de rattrapage scolaire. On appelle éducation accélérée en RDC, ce sont des centres de rattrapage scolaire. C'est ainsi que quand l'organisation change l'objectif ou l'opérateur économique change l'objectif, le centre d'apprentissage disparaît dans le milieu. Ce qui les rend non viables pendant quelques années et ça revient encore, ça réouvre encore et c'est quelque chose qui est trop vulnérable, pas vraiment très fondé, qui ne donne vraiment pas beaucoup des résultats directs au niveau de la communauté congolaise. Ces derniers temps, comme je le disais, ce sont les organisations internationales des Nations Unies ou les particuliers, les opérateurs économiques qui s'en chargent. Et la dernière version, c'est l'UNICEF qui a aidé à pouvoir revoir les programmes d'apprentissage accéléré, les programmes d'éducation accélérée, qu'on continue à appeler. Voilà un peu comment le contexte de la RDC fonctionne avec l'éducation accélérée. Les prochains slides, c'est déjà présenté par mon collègue. Donc, c'est les résultats, c'est juste les résultats. Ceux qui voudront lire les résultats, ils pourront passer en revue ce qui sont les résultats réalisés par rapport à l'éducation accélérée au niveau de la province du Nord Kivu. Les prochains slides. C'est la suite de l'expérience et du projet qui met en œuvre l'éducation accélérée au Nord Kivu. Et vous pourriez encore lire les prochains slides qui vont vous parler de l'expérience de l'éducation accélérée au Nord Kivu. Le prochain. Voilà un peu. Les dernières slides n'étaient pas beaucoup expliquées parce que ça revient, c'est juste l'expérience presque similaire à Save the Children et que la lecture, ça sera le complément de ce que Save the Children a présenté. Merci.
Thank you so much for sharing those presentations, Clémence and Joseph. I will now introduce Dr. John Ede Enemisa, who will be sharing his experience from the Nigerian context.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Okay. Thanks so much for this rare opportunity for me to share my experience on AA in Nigeria since our return from Uganda. Next slide. In Nigeria, the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education is the only coordinating body set up to formulate policies and guidelines in all matters relating to non-formal education in Nigeria. However, there are many actors implementing accelerated education in Nigeria. First among them is National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education. We also have State Ministry of Education. We also have Universal Basic Education Commission. And of course, we also have State Agency for Mass Education, which are spread across the 36 states of the country. However, there are also NGOs, civil society organizations, faith-based organizations that are also implementing AE in Nigeria. Now, who are our targets? Our targets for AE include adults and adolescents who have never been to school and cannot read or write. We also have adults and adolescents who are above school-going age, but have not achieved reading, writing, and numeracy. Among these categories, we also have young adults who left school before acquiring basic education due to factors such as conflict, pregnancy, ill health, or death of parents. Furthermore, we also have early school leavers who could not stay on to achieve permanent literacy for effective work. And of course, we have vulnerable and constrained women and girls. Now, is there any curriculum that are compressed to address AE in Nigeria? Yes, there are curriculum. And the major curriculum we have is basic literacy and numeracy curriculum, which has also been translated into the 3 major Nigerian languages, Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. This curriculum has been so compressed to make sure that within a space of 3 years, a learners will be able to read and write. This curriculum, as I've said, is divided into basic and numeracy. For the basic literacy, it lasts for just 9 months and is being offered in local languages. While for post-literacy, this one takes about 2 years. In a nutshell, in primary school, it takes you 6 years to complete primary school. But with AE or non-formal approach, it takes you about 2.5 years or at most 3 years to achieve literacy, skill. And of course, we also have issue that has to do that more issue of certification. Most actors in the state do not offer certification, and this is quite demoralizing to most of the learners. Next slide. Now, our experience. My experience in Uganda, indeed, to me, it was an eye-opener. A real eye-opener when you look at the 10 principles. In fact, the 10 principles has further empowered me or build my capacity on how to effectively address the issue of young adults, youth, using the AE, using the 10 principles of 10 principles that we learn. Next slide. Next slide. Now, application from the workshop. On our return to Nigeria, the first assignment we did is to carry out what we call stakeholders meeting. As we all know, AE is age specific. AEP is flexible and for overage learners. regrettably, most of the learners in AE centers are not categorized according to age. In some centers, you can see somebody who is 10 years old. In some cases, you see 18. In some cases, you see older adults. And we believe that the best way to do this is to carry out a stakeholders meeting, whereby we have all key actors, Director of State Agencies for Mass Education, notable NGOs, notable CEOs, notable FBOs, for them to align with the AE principle. And of course, this is yielding positive result. In addition, we have also carried out series of funding mechanism. When this AE is no longer there, how do we address the issue of funding? In this wise, the Universal Basic Education Commission and State Universal Basic Education Board are doing a lot to make sure that the adult and non-formal education sector is given proper recognition and support in terms of funding. Next slide. Next slide. In addition to that, we also came into the principle number 5, which specifies teachers should participate in continuous professional development. What have we done in this respect? We have been able to review the existing training manual and incorporated into the manual new topics such as COVID-19 and other emerging health-related issues. And of course, in all the states, in most of the state agents for mass education, the issue of teachers training and retraining is ongoing. And on principle 8, we have been able to also make sure that we carry out a lot of mobilization and sensitization of key messages. At the moment, we are running sensitization on radio, sport, and jiggles in all the 36 states and FCT, and this will last for at least 3 months. And the major goal of this is to make sure that everyone is accountable, everyone is engaged, everyone is hearing the information, everyone is saying, yes, I need to be part and parcel of addressing the incidence of out-of-school children in Nigeria. Next slide. Next slide. Most of our greatest successes are this. The National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education has been able to develop primers. Before now, most of the primers on AE, they are obsolete. To this extent, we have been able to develop primers in basic literacy and post-literacy. Primers in numeracy and literacy in major Nigerian languages, Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. And of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it was so serious, the Commission has to review its existing training manual on literacy by radio program. And you can see, these are some of the things we have developed. And to crown it all, we will also make sure that there is a code of conduct for adult and non-formal learning centers. It is not that they are not there. The code of conduct are not there, but they are not laid down rules that people can easily refer to. We have them in word chart, we have them in a booklet form. And of course, the training manual also we have been able to review to some extent. This is our success so far. Next slide.
Just a quick reminder to pause for translation.
Challenges. Some of the greater challenges we are facing in Nigeria is the issue of age. Most of the data on adult and non-formal education on AE, they are not age specific. They are not age specific, and there is no law or policy that is penalizing anyone not to penalize anyone for not registering his child or his student based on age category. In addition to that, the issue of certification is also a greater challenge. Most of the AE centers are not giving certificates to learners that successfully graduated from their learning center. And if this is not done, it will continue to demotivate would-be learners to such center. In addition, there's lack of synergy and coordination among key actors. And lastly, funding is a greater challenge in addressing most of the problems. Next slide. Next slide. Way forward. There should be proper synergy among the key actors, among the international development partners, among the local, among the nationals, among the institutions, among all the bodies that is implementing AE. And of course, the issue of certification needs to be properly considered. And lastly, funding the sector should be properly funded for us to achieve our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are just slightly over time. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who has attended today, and thank you to our panelists as well. I've really appreciated learning more about accelerated education in DRC and Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
We haven't had any, so we've had several questions which have been answered during the presentation. However, if anyone would like to ask further questions, I will share an email contact in the chat. And also we will share again the link to the INE website where you can find the whole accelerated education resources, guidance and toolkits around the workshop in a variety of languages. Fantastic, Peter has already shared it. So thank you everyone, thank you panelists, and we hope to hear from you soon.